Hey, sixth graders. Today we're continuing our discussion about what it means to adjust to changes and to use flexible thinking. And what we're going to talk about today is using perspective taking skills. Now, you might have heard of perspective taking or taking others' perspectives before, so we're going to touch on that a little bit today. So, first of all, knowing what perspective taking means is going to be important. So, we can define that as considering someone else's point of view, thinking about what that other person might be thinking or feeling. So it might include things like trying to understand how the other person or somebody else or even multiple people might feel in a certain situation. And it might be trying to figure out why a person is thinking or behaving in a certain way. Maybe somebody is acting or thinking in a way that is different from you. Oftentimes, it's good to take perspective to try to figure out why they believe something differently than us. And it's important because if we can understand where someone else's thinking is coming from, then we can better reframe our own thinking and we can better get along with people once we understand why their thinking might be a little different from ours. So here's one of my favorite examples. If we look at this example, these two gentlemen right here, it looks like they're in an argument. The man on the left in the black shirt is saying that, hey, it's a 6. And the man on the right is saying, no, that's a 9. And they could probably argue back and forth about this all day long. But it's probably not going to do either of them any good if they don't try to stop and figure out or take some perspective on why the other person might be giving a different answer. Now, for us, it's easy to see that because they're facing opposite directions, yes, it does look like a 6 to the person on the left, and it does look like a 9 to the person on the right. But unless they stop and try to figure out why the other person is saying something differently and take some perspective, it could cause big problems. But if they stop and take perspective, they could figure it out pretty easily. So, in our lives, we also want to make sure that we are using perspective taking skills. So, here's how we can do that. First of all, we need to consider, what would I feel like in the same or a similar situation? Maybe somebody is going through something and they're behaving in a way that's very different from us and how we're behaving right now. But we should stop and think, well, if I was in a similar situation, how might I react? Maybe you might feel the same. Also, you could think about, what would it be like to be in their shoes? Now, this means kind of putting yourself in their position. Maybe you may not act the same way, but you could have some similar feelings as them. It's good to think about, how does that other person probably feel right now? And trying to really consider their feelings and showing some empathy in that situation can always help. And then also considering, what might this other person be thinking? Because sometimes the way a person is acting on the outside might look a lot differently from what they're thinking. So it can be good to consider those things. So, in order to practice those skills today, you're going to go to the next slide and you're just going to choose two of the scenarios there. In these scenarios, you want to read the scenario and then think about what the two different perspectives might be in that scenario. Again, you just have to do two.